we watched Godzilla versus Kong and then Godzilla X Kong. I haven't seen the modern MonsterVerse movies, but Kat's mom wanted to go to Godzilla X Kong, and she was like, "Do you want to come?" And I was like, "Sure," but I hadn't seen the first one, and I needed the backstory, I needed the lore, so we watched versus Kong beforehand, like the night before, or something, a few days before, something like that. That's a fun movie. What do I remember from Godzilla versus Kong? Oh yeah, no, it's just like a fun. Okay, so Godzilla versus Kong has big shoes to fill, but they're like interestingly big shoes to fill. They're big clown shoes to fill. Whoops, because it's such an iconic movie monster matchup, an MMM. Like everyone, like Godzilla vs. Kong is the original is this iconic idea, like visual. But I've watched it. I went through a period where I was watching a bunch of old Godzilla movies in order, and I think it's kind of one of the weaker ones, to be honest. So first of all, Godzilla versus King Kong is a really bad matchup. So they have to size up King Kong and they have to size down Godzilla to make it even. And then, like, fighting wise, I mean, you look at Godzilla and it's like, okay, he's a judo black belt, which that's a real thing. He's a judo black belt. He has nuclear breath, and he has this big long tail that gives him reach. King Kong is a monkey. So like the whole movie, the whole fight, it's like the shittiest monster fighting. It's just King Kong hiding behind cover and throwing rocks at Godzilla. And Godzilla gets hit. He goes, ah, fuck. God, knock it off. That's the whole fight. And then they can't even like justify it in the script. So they have to pull this just nonsense out of their ass where they're like, some news reporter comes on and goes, oh, the government has discovered, the government, they've discovered that Godzilla is weak to electricity, and Kong is powered up by electricity. You're like, what? So that's like the only way that they could like even get it to a draw. And then you have like the human stuff in that movie, which is boring and takes up too much time. And that's kind of like, those are the two axes. It's like, what's the human stuff like and what's the monster fighting like? And the monster fighting isn't that good, and the human stuff takes up too much time and it's boring. Which is why Godzilla versus the Sea Monster is so good, because the human stuff is really interesting and weird and funny, and the Godzilla stuff is fun. When he fights a big lobster, that stuff's fun. That's like one of the only Godzilla movies where it feels like I want them to cut back to the human plot line, because it's so exciting. Exciting, is that the right word? It's so engaging. What a weird movie. So how does this, I guess, reimagining of the idea fare? Better. The human parts are still like very, very vestigial feeling, but they take up way too much of the movie. Like there's this whole plot line with this guy who I do appreciate it because he's a podcaster representation. And, we need representation in this world that is always just shitting on us. And it's like him and Millie Bobby Brown and some British guy, and their whole plot line is like almost nothing besides like a tiny little bit of exposition, but it takes up like way too much time. There's the plot line with that lady who is not Scarlett Johansson. I forget her name. She's the scientist lady, and her adopted indigenous daughter from Skull Island. There is some funny stuff in this movie. Like, I love the reveal that Kong has learned how to speak sign language. That was awesome. That was really funny. The Godzilla stuff is fun. I just like seeing Godzilla, When they actually meet up to fight, once you get into that proper, like, I think it's around like when they get to Hong Kong, there's like a couple throwdowns between the two of them. There's like, the first one is like pretty good. And then once they get into Hong Kong, it's like just straight action. And that's when I think the movie really gets good. Like in that third act is really good. Because it's just them fucking each other and every single building around them up. It's, I don't know, it's some fun, it's some good monster fighting. I'm not going to lie, it's some good monster fighting. They do have a reference to something from Godzilla, the original movie, from the original God v. Kong, which is the moment where King Kong shoves a tree down Godzilla's throat. They adapted that into King Kong shoving his like axe handle down Godzilla's throat. But to me, it was very clearly like a callback. And then Mechagodzilla shows up to like force the both of them to fight him, and that's fun. I like Mechagodzilla. This isn't my favorite look for the character. He's a little too skinny. Mechagodzilla should be like a little bulkier, right? But he is a little too skinny, like in the body. And it doesn't make him look quite as powerful as I feel like he should. But it's some good fighting, you know? They both have to team up to stop him, and then they both go their separate ways. So yeah, honestly, a pretty solid movie. You might understand, you might be like, wow, you know, that's not a very deep analysis, but like, level with me for a second. Like, there are people, I think this is so dumb. Like, there are people out there who are like, oh my God, look at this stupid schlock. Oh, I'm so much better than this. Look, buddy, if you go to a movie called Godzilla versus King Kong and you're expecting some kind of high art, deep thematic film, you're stupider than the movie is. This is about toxic yaoi between a lizard and a gorilla. And nothing's going to change that, okay? They're going to... King Kong is going to make Godzilla throw out his whole shaft, all right? And that's what the movie's about. But yeah, much better job with the actual fight. I know that they were already kind of like planning for this, because they in the previous movies, they were kind of setting up Godzilla's a little smaller, King Kong's a little bigger. Because, man, it is just such a mismatch. Like, even in that original movie, even just, like, thematically what both of those characters represent, it's like, okay, the atom bomb versus black people. I'm sorry. I think the walking nuke that has a black belt in judo is going to take this one 10 times out of 10, Mr. Kong. So yeah, improvements on the original concept, I feel. Solid monster fighter movie. Then we went to go see Godzilla X Kong. So they finally like made the relationship official. Did I like this one more? I think I did just because like the weird stuff is weirder. Like the weird, like, okay, here's the thing. A lot of people will watch this and be like, this is stupid. Man, go watch those old movies. There is weird, stupid shit all the time with like aliens and secret civilizations that worship monsters and have like magic and stuff. And like, this is not new. I'm very used to this. Let's see. How's the human stuff in Godzilla X Kong? It's fine. It could probably stand to take up a little less of the movie, but once you do hit a certain point again, like it does like pick up more in the monster fighting area. There is a very funny sequence where it becomes a plot point that King Kong has a tooth infection and they need to replace his tooth. And that is like a whole scene. Kong, he gets damaged. This whole thing is like, okay, I was a little like meh at first because I didn't know where it was going. But so they've really leaned into this setting of Kong and all the monsters having some kind of origin from like Hollow Earth. This almost alternate world below the Earth's crust. And Kong is hanging out there, and he discovers that there's a bunch of other King Kongs like him in a previously unknown region of Hollow Earth. Now, here's the thing. I think I realized this when we watched Kung Fu Panda 2. Is that I'm not really one... I've realized this about myself. I don't really care for stories about a main character finding where they belong. Or, finding my people again. And going back home and finding other people like me. Those are just stories that generally don't interest me. And they don't do a lot for me. Just on like a very subjective level. Which is why I think like KFP2 didn't do a whole lot for me personally. And I was worried that this movie was going to go in the same direction. But thankfully they don't really. Like there's an obvious aspect of that. But it's not really the focus. It turns into this weird like Kong is going home to liberate his people from Monkey Hitler, who has like a big, it's like a whip made out of spine, like a spinal cord with a big crystal dagger on the front that he does like anime poses with. Like, it's crazy. Make a fighting game already. Make like a big 3D Power Stone brawler with these fucking characters already. I know this existed on the PS2, but make a new one. He meets like this little baby Kong, and he's like, oh, baby Kong, whoa. And then the baby Kong has actually like lured him into a trap to get attacked by a bunch of other monkeys. And he fights them off, and as he's fighting them off, the little baby Kong is running away. He grabs it by the leg, and I fucking laughed so hard in the theater. He starts whipping the fucking baby around like a flail and like smacking the other monkeys around. And then he just like fucking hatchet toss flings it into another one's like head and like knocks it out. It's fucking awesome. It rules so hard. It's like if King Kong was like Postal dude. Like Postal 2. That ruled. There's still like a lot of just fun, goofy shit. And I like that. It's goofy shit, but everyone takes it completely seriously. And I appreciate that a lot. The Godzilla stuff is fun. I like that he kind of takes on the Colosseum, the Roman Colosseum, as his like little doggy bed that he likes curling up in. There's a lot of scenes of him just going around. Basically, the premise of the movie is there is this underground Hollow Earth society of apes. And their leader, the Scar King, is he's trying to break out into the surface world so that he can conquer it. Godzilla hears this distress signal from like a tribe that's in Hollow Earth, and they're warning him about this thing that's happening. So he's basically going around the world farming XP by just killing monsters and absorbing their energy and stuff. And he's just like powering up. Meanwhile, Kong is below in the Hollow Earth on this like quest to find his people, finds out what's going on, escapes, and then it goes from there. The Scar King has like a ice dragon that he has like control over, like mind control over. And they gotta like, it turns into monkey and lizard versus evil monkey and evil lizard. And then fucking Mothra shows up, baby. I was so hype. I love Mothra. I love Mothra so much, dude. Kat was like, I felt like the Mothra stuff wasn't necessary. And I was like, shut up. It's necessary. It's always, you can never hurt a movie by adding in Mothra, okay? Gone with the Wind. The wind was from Mothra's wings, okay? Like, she makes every movie way more epic. Way more epicer. She's there, which was cool. She doesn't even do that much, but she's just there. There is a very overt reference to, oh god, which one is it? I think it's Godzilla versus Ghidorah or something like that. I forget exactly which one it is. but it's one of the older ones. It's one of the original, like, Showa era? I think Showa. Where it's Godzilla and Rodan. They're fighting, and then Ghidorah's like, I'm fucking Ghidorah. And then Mothra has to come in and be like, stop fighting! Please stop fighting and fight Ghidorah instead. They do the exact same thing, except instead of Rodan, it's Kong. It's cool. I appreciated that. There's some really fun, but they do fight. They do have some fights before then. And okay, that first Godzilla and Kong fight in the movie is really good. Oh my god, it is so fun. They're in the pyramids, great location to have a giant monster fight. They actually, okay, because again, like in terms of just like a straight one-on-one fight, it's not a great matchup because Godzilla is just so much stronger. Like he's fucking insanely strong. So they kind of have worked into this thing where, yeah, Godzilla's like an absolute powerhouse and he can go forever and he's incredibly durable. But Kong's advantage is in the sneak attacks and using tools. Like, because he's like an ape, right? And he's innovative and he can be creative. And he can think fast on his feet, on his little monkey paws. And there's a fucking hilarious moment. Okay, it might be the best like 20 seconds in a film this entire year. It's when Kong uses the fucking pocket sand on Godzilla. He just tosses sand in his face. Godzilla blasts the pyramids apart in retaliation. Kong runs away. Godzilla catches him and does a fucking German suplex. It's awesome. It rules. It's so good. Godzilla doing actual like grappler moves is really fun. So, when Kong has his tools, when he's got like the axe, he gets a robot arm because his arm gets super damaged. So they give him like a robot prosthetic arm on top of it to like power him up. That's awesome. Then he can kind of even it out a little bit. But in the long term, he just can't really go toe to toe with Godzilla. And that's I like that they actually put effort into giving them both advantages and weaknesses in the matchup. And then the fighting at the end is all fun. You just get to watch a bunch of buildings get exploded and people do cool signature moves and stuff like that. And it's a lot of fun, especially like after the halfway mark. So it's also a pretty long movie. I would recommend it if you like these stupid ass giant monster movies. I didn't think that the human stuff was too egregious. I think that some of the characters in this were more likable, at least just a little easier to watch on screen than maybe in the last one. I forget who the guy is. He's like Australian or British or I don't know, man. New Zealand, who knows? He's at least charismatic. I feel like a lot of his dialogue would come up as like really forced, like charismatic guy, but I think the actor does a pretty good job conveying it and being actually charming. It's good. Still, more podcaster representation, which, keep the fight going, brother. We should have our own flag. The Pride Parade. Guys who talk into microphones for 2 hours straight. Like me, like on this podcast.